Good morning, viewers. Welcome to Frankly Speaking with Vibhuti Jha. Today we are going to talk about a very interesting topic for which concerns majority of Indians living in America and the world around. And that is about Hinduism, Sanatan Dharma, the practices that makes us who we are. In the last many years, Hinduism has been under attack by many other religious forces. Many a times we are almost on defensive, explaining who we are and what we do and why we are the way we are. Now we are going to talk about this event. This conversation will be powerful in the sense that we will also make a self-evaluation of where we are and where to go next. And in addition, what we have done so far to make our impact more forceful or build a clout. Now we have an institution called Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America, which is kind of a mirror organization of Vishwa Hindu Parishad of India, but it is independent organization. And today I have great pleasure in welcoming Mr. J. Bansal ji. Mr. J. Bansal is a chemical engineer, a PhD, and he has spent his lifetime working for ExxonMobil and that family. He is also a Karyakarta of Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America. He is at the moment currently treasurer and spokesperson for Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America. He is also a convener for a big event that is happening in September 18th and 19th in Meadowlands in New Jersey. And to have him explain what Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America is all about, we will elicit certain responses. But to begin with, I would like to know from you is that you are a committed Hindu. You are part of a Karyakarta of Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America. Share with us what kind of a progress has Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America made in India, in the United States, to make an impact, and what has been the implications of the efforts that VHPA has done?
Thank you, Vibhuti ji. First of all, my greetings to your viewers. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning, and to talk about our favorite subject, Hindu Dharma, and particularly Hindu Dharma in America. So I think we have to start with the observation that we started coming to America in mid-60s in larger numbers. Then through the family reunification program through the late 70s and 80s, the second wave came, and then of course the IT wave in 1990s, and that's continuing. Today we are, by some accounts, close to 4 million Hindu diaspora from various parts of the world that calls America its home. So we obviously have now second generation, third generation Hindus growing up and making their mark in America. They need, those of us who came for the first generation immigrants, of course they had the Hindu sanskars they brought with them, but our challenge was to convey those sanskars to our next generation and generation thereafter. This intergenerational continuity and sustainability is clearly an important issue for any community that is making a home someplace other than their native home. So that was the challenge that our community had, and some of the visionaries in our community as early as late 60s and early 70s recognized that challenge and formed this organization called the Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America, which, as you correctly pointed out, is, although we take inspiration from Vishwa Hindu Parishad of Bharat, we are, for all intents and purposes, an independent organization registered here in America. So we were formed in 1970. So that means we are essentially completing our 50th year this year. And in those 50 years, we have made progresses in a number of areas. As I said, our biggest challenge is how to connect with our next generation, how to convey to them our sanskars, our value system, how to make them proud in their Hindu heritage. So to that, we have instituted a number of programs. Bal Vihar is one of the most successful, I would say, program that Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America has instituted long time ago, and it has a large number of our children have gone through this Bal Vihar program, and it's a program where they learn, of course, the language, mother tongue, as well as our sanskars.
Now, let me just
Yes.
interrupt you here
Yes.
and ask about, that's a very important point you raised,
Yes.
that connecting and the connectivity and the linkages of the youth to the Hindu sanskar that is there, which is very important. Otherwise, most of the second generation Indians and the children will remain Hindus in name only. They will be
Correct.
Hinnos.
Correct.
And that's what my concern and fear is all about.
Correct.
Given the fact that, the young generation, we try to assimilate and adopt better than most religious faiths anywhere we go. So we try to be more American than we need to be, perhaps. And in this process, we lose our identity. So Bal Vihar and other programs are great, but share with me, if you will, that in addition to Bal Vihar, we met at the Threads program in Boston, the
Correct.
first ever Threads program. How did the name Thread come about?
Sure.
And the program was very successful. I was there myself. So the point which I'm trying to raise here is that when you do the threads and connectivity, what is the guiding force for doing that?
Very interesting and very relevant question, Vibhuti. First of all, before I talk about threads, which is obviously very close to my heart since I was very keenly involved in it, I want to point out that Bal Vihar is not the only program.
I totally agree. There must be many more programs.
There are many programs.
Right.
But since you asked me specifically about threads, let me talk about it. There were a number of reasons why we felt a program, a conference like Threads 2019 should take place. Let me start with a story. I recall it goes back to almost 25-30 years, actually, interestingly. That's when you used to have people actually collecting tolls at these toll roads. So I remember driving on Garden State Parkway and stopping at a toll booth to pay my toll. And this lady looked at us, both of us, my wife and I, and she recognized that we were from India, or of Indian origin. So she said, "Are you an engineer or a doctor?" Now, I answered matter of factly, "I'm an engineer," and we drove off. But it really, started bothering me, or I started sort of really thinking a little bit deeply about it. Is that all we are? I mean, we are, in other words, the society that we are trying to make home in, at least some part of it has defined us as either engineers or doctors. It's a very confining definition. Now, reality is, reality is our community is much more diverse than that. We are, you are in the news business. There are
prior to news business, I have a professional banker.
Professional background, of course. But what I'm saying is that our, people of Indian origin are in all sorts of different professions, and yet, at least in this particular interaction, we were defined as either engineers or doctors. So it is up to us to actually show to the world at large, including our next generation, that we are broader than just, these very few narrow fields that people see us as, whether it's IT, whether it's engineer, doctor, and so on and so forth. So that's one point I wanted to make. Second point I want to make is we've been here now for about 50 years. And, we look at the accomplishments of, our community in all sorts of fields. We're running major, world-class organizations, entrepreneurs. We've done tremendous contribution in the area of technology and so on and so forth. And gone into some non-traditional fields as well. Met a young lady who is running a world-class organization in raising funds for philanthropical organizations, for instance. So we have all these wonderful contributions that we've been making, our community has been making to their adopted land for the last 50 years, but we've never really took the time to look back and see what the road has been like, what our journey has been like, and what our trials and tribulations are, what our contributions are as a community, not as an individual.
That's a very, very important point, which is also at the core of my life.
Right.
Because when I came in this country in 91, my responsibility was to showcase India as an investment and destination, an opportunity.
Sure.
Now, in the process, I learned that while we had enormous contributions we had made as professionals, like a senator once told me that we love you Indians as immigrants to this country. You are professionals, talking about engineers and doctors, but there are many more who are in many other fields. We are professionals. We have family values. We take care of your children. We are least problem from the law and order point of view. And we ask for nothing. In America, that's the vital question, is that Vishwa Hindu Parishad is an organization, it's an august body. My question is, have we developed the necessary clout? Now, 4 million people is a small number, but to develop a clout, you don't need be a number only. But how is the ideation of our way of life, the road behind, looking back, looking forward, how has this ideation made an impact on America? So to that end, I would like you to tell us and share with us that what has VHPA done in the last 50 years that made a seminal impact that you think happened?
Okay. So before I go to that question, let me complete my thought process on all the things that brought Threads together and why it's called Threads.
Right.
The third observation I would like to make, and please keep that question handy because I do want to answer your question that you just raised. The third point is, it starts with the observation that if you want to destroy a community, you take their history away. I think we know how that works. We've been victim of that through history as Hindus, as Indians. However, the reverse is also true, I believe. And the reverse is that if you want to create a community, give them pride in themselves, you give them a history, a narrative. And of course, the narrative has to be based on facts. It has to be based on provable information. But you have to create that narrative from their personal experiences. So that was, all those three threads came together and they became the genesis of what we call Threads 2019 conference. As you well know, since you were there, we brought together some really high profile Hindus and those non-Hindus who find something interesting and valuable in the Hindu Dharma, the Dharmic system. We brought them together. We had over 60 speakers, as you well know, and over 2 days, they talked about their accomplishments. They talked about not just their accomplishment, but also connected their accomplishments with their Hindu heritage without being prompted, which to me, I think was one of the biggest achievements of that conference. You have testimonials in front of you from variety of speakers, not only Hindus but also non-Hindus who came there, and I think they gave glowing feedback. So that tells me that It was something useful that we accomplished in that conference. So that's what Threads is about.
Coming back to that again question that I had asked you, that how do we build a cloud? You know, it's important. Now we will talk about it in the next segment, but at the moment it's very important to remember that the Hindus, the Vishwa Hindu Parishad, and Hindus in general who are not even members of VHPA know about it or don't know about it.
Sure.
The question here is that how do we build the redefinition and create a new narrative of us Indians and Hindus especially in this particular world which is so much fraught with religious strife. Now, I personally believe that our faith of Sanatan Dharma and Hinduism is remarkably relevant in this point in time. In this point in time, because science and technology has advanced so much that we now know that women are no longer responsible for gender determination of a child. We know, because of science and technology, that gods are not angry when there is lightning and thunder. These are natural phenomena, and our belief system borrows or lives the idea of Sanatan Dharma eternal principles which are based in nature. Now, the question here is, now you notice very importantly that even the Film Festival Golden Globe Awards, to protect climate change and save the world from climate change, served plant-based food to its guests and visitors for the first ever time.
Absolutely.
These are the kind of awareness which is happening about that, and this is the moment for us to seize. As a famous statement goes, you have to seize the moment. Stay tuned. We will be talking about this and many more things right after this short break. Welcome back. We were talking about how the Hindu philosophy and Sanatan Dharma principles, they need to be written up again in a new way so that the world understands us. We Hindus have been rather nonchalant about, hum jaise hain waise hain. The world is not like that. The world is very assertive. If we see the landscape today, you are seeing a clash of civilization happening between Christianity and Islam. And in the name of democratic principles, everybody is taking advantage politically. Where do we land politically in this spectrum of things? Because we are part of many groups. We are interacting. We see our young folks who are in Silicon Valley or India here, they are all in a state of confusion as to who exactly we are. And that is the question that I wanted to ask, that
Sure.
we need to be more than Hindus in name only.
Sure.
And we have to create. So share with me your impressions about the fact that how do we create the narrative that Hinduism has a lot to offer to the present world towards peace and general welfare?
Very good question, Vibhuti ji. It's not a small challenge, as you well.
And
I'm sure.
I am totally with you on this, that one program is not going to change.
Right.
So we will have to talk more about it, and you are invited again to come and share the thought process.
Sure.
But let's try to attempt
Sure.
to say that what needs to be done, Threads and others,
Absolutely.
that brings a unity of purpose that is missing in Hindus.
Correct. So I think we have traditionally believed in teaching by example. So we, behave well. We, do good things. We, help the society. We make contribution to society, and that, our impression or our thought process has been that would actually be good enough. Now we realize that actually is not by itself good enough. We need to do more than that. We don't believe in hitting the streets and shouting slogans. That to us does not really. That's not us. That's not our personality as as Hindus. We believe in soft advocacy. So and we have some examples where different Hindu organizations came together to solve a particular problem that community was facing, and we were able to make a difference. The example I want to quote to you is the famous textbook case in California, where there was lot of negative narrative about Hindu Dharma that was sort of being put into these textbooks. And it's not just California textbooks; they go into the rest of the country as well. So it's polluting our education system and giving a false impression about Hindu Dharma. Some 40 plus odd different organizations came together. It took a lot of effort, but we were able to turn the tide. We were able to stop that from happening, and now we have a seat at the table to actually write the textbooks in the right way, in the way we think the narrative should be written. So there are examples like that, but admittedly they are few and far between. We would like to multiply those examples as time goes on. Our, I think, biggest challenge is to make our next generation, and I'm not talking about young children, I'm talking about adults as well, people who are young professionals who are now having the raising families. We have to reach to them and make them aware that there are our community is and will continue to face challenges unless we come together as a society and come together with a common purpose to defend our values and to promote our values, create that positive narrative and take it out into the society at large. And I believe one of the ways to do, Threads is an example of that. We try to create that. Last year we had the World Hindu Congress, as you well know, last September 2018, where we brought Hindus together for a common purpose. But I think that movement, we need to do a lot more. And I personally, this is my personal opinion, is that we need to use our temples as the teaching, turn them into teaching institutions, educational institutions, where they educate about the challenges that society at large faces and is going to face, and what we should be doing about those challenges. That, I believe, is going to, at this point, my understanding is we have over 1,000 temples in this, and temples are multiplying. There are a lot of people that go to these temples, primarily for rituals, but there are, having said that, there are some temples that are educational institutions. They are imparting, the Hindu Dharma education to the children, but talk about their heritage as well. But we need to expand that and make more and more of our religious institutions into education imparting institutions.
That is a very important part. Education and teaching the children about our values is key to the future of our faith. But there are certain values that need to be explained also properly. Yeah. So, for example, one of the often repeated word or the phrase is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Now, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, world is a family. I do not know whether Kutumb translates into family. Does Kutumb translate into community? Because that's important, because family as a unit, it is a very important concept for us. Mm-hmm. It is globally family values they always talk about. But in the American context, family has a very different connotation. The famous joke, his children, my children, our children. Because the divorce rates are very high here. Mm-hmm. People remarry, people have third marriages, fourth marriages, his children, her children. In this kind of a society, we are fighting a kind of a very interesting narrative. Because schools and colleges, for children particularly who go in those, they are learning the American values. In our Indian context, I remember obedience of children was considered to be the biggest value. My child is a very obedient child. That is something that we nourished, sure. We lived by. In this society, asking question to learn is the modus operandi. You children are asked to ask questions. That if your parents beat you, let us know. There is a third-party organization that come in. There is a lot of narrative going on, and we have to kind of bring that forth in our children, that regardless of what you are taught, this is who we are. This is how the value systems come about. Sure. That's the point which I'm saying. I find, and here is my thought, I find that we Hindus are remarkably compliant and accepting of what is dished out. And one of the reasons for that, in my opinion, is that majority of us are either working in Western countries. We go there to work for Americans or Europeans or British or whatever, or there are people working in the Middle East area. Both the places we are job seekers. And it comes naturally to us to become compliant. We have hardly seen an assertive Hindu demanding that this is the way it is, whereas the Muslim community demands Sharia, they demand halal. We are not demanding at all. Is there something, for example, this is where it brings me to another topic, is that what is the modus operandi, what is the ammo? So I call Christianity's ammo as outreach, commitment to outreach and spread the word that Jesus is the only way. The modus operandi of Islam is the die-hard way to say that Allah is supreme and everything else is irrelevant. What is our modus operandi? What is the word that defines us? Have we come to that conclusion?
Yeah, you covered a lot of ground here, Vibhuti, and I'm not sure which part of it
I'm saying that what is the ammo? What is the ammo? To use the American slang, what is the ammo that defines us? So, for example, to give you an example from sports, to elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure.
So, for example, there is a player who is defined as saying his ability to shift into any gear in any particular point in time, that's his ammo. That's his strength. His physicality is his strength. What is our ammo?
Yeah, so I think our ammo is to show our value proposition through example, okay, and through education. As I said, from the get-go, we are not the kind of people who would go and agitate against things that we do not like or that we find offensive. We simply advocate for our cause. We simply show that our value system actually contributes to the society in a positive way. And through that, we hope and expect, that Hindu system, Hindu Dharma is going to gain its primacy, at least in our own, extended family and in the world beyond. So I think that's the way I see it.
That's very good. But the point here is another thing, another thought of mine, and which is what I would leave it to you and your great organization to ponder over. Think about the amount of, you said it's not in our blood to go on the streets, but that's exactly what is happening in India. Everything is branded. I mean, the world press is talking about Hindutva. Now, we haven't built institutions the way the Christianity and Islam has built institutions. We are living in the world. So we can't say that I'm singing my own tune and going forward, either you are part of it or don't, doesn't matter, but it matters. Because we are living in a community where we are a billion people, so is Islam, so is Christianity, and whatever. The question is that how do we create that narrative? And I'll tell you something very simple. Prime Minister Modi gave a completely new dimension to the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam when he established the International Solar Alliance, when he said there is one sun, there is one earth, and the one grid. That is a definition of how the world is one. The oneness concept gets translated there. But family, if you look at it, is a very interesting, intriguing concept. Because in a family, if all CEOs say we want to treat our employees as our family, it's a dangerous word. Because in a family, you accept Uncle Joe who is sitting in jail as well, or the brother who is not working well enough in the family, but he drives the same interest from the... And when the parents die, all families have their own unit to serve. Therefore, the family concept needs to be understood properly before we say, because that's where the West doesn't acknowledge the concept of family in the same way that we intend to communicate, and that message needs to be retranslated.
Yeah, it's interesting that you talk about that a corporate cannot imbibe family value and still carry on. I sat through a very interesting talk. I was at a internal meeting, as a matter of fact, a governing council meeting not too long ago. And a young man, he was probably in his late 30s, so compared to me at least, he's young. He is running business and a very thriving business on the basis of treating his employees as family. You know, it's from day one. And I mean, he's created a new business model, and in fact, he is, you know, not franchising it, but you know, he's taking that message on the road. All I'm saying is, I would not give up on the idea of, you know, expanding this concept of family value that, you know, we imbibe into various spheres of influence, or you know, our karibhumi, so to speak. That said, yes, I mean, we you know, certainly need to go out and have, you know, increase our footprint in terms of advocacy for the community, which is, I think, where you are, you know, sort of heading to. It's an area that is work in progress. We have a number of organizations that are working towards that, but it is an area where we need to increase our footprint. Now, the positive news is that actually our community is slowly but surely expanding their footprint in public service. As you know, there are a number of our Hindu or Indian representatives.
Yeah, they are not representative. Congressional representatives are not Hindu representatives.
Okay,
they're Indians.
They're Indians.
Yeah,
but then, so we're going to get variegated, I mean, flavor out there. You know, not everyone is going to think along the same lines, and that's not who we are. We're not people of a book. We are people of knowledge. And knowledge comes in all kinds of flavors and impressions. So yes, you're going to get multiple opinions, but the point is, more and more of us are getting interested in those non-STEM fields, going into public service, advocacy, and so on and so forth. And we just need to make sure that you know, we continue to stay close to you know, these people, and continue to make sure that we are not falling for false narratives. You know,
that's very good, because not falling for false narrative is very important.
Yeah.
Because if we don't write our own narrative,
Yeah.
others write about us.
Correct.
I will, after this break, we will talk about the vision.
Okay.
I see some very important concepts in your vision about prachar, seva, sanskar, and you know, sampark that you talk about very well. The one thing which is very attractive to me is sanskar. The sanskar word has no translation in English, at least I don't know. If you know, please do tell. But the point, if important, is sanskar. There is no written book on sanskar, but we value sanskar a lot. Let's talk about this after this short break. Welcome back. We were talking about the four visionary statements of Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America. One of them is sanskar. Now, sanskar is something, there is no written book on sanskar I am aware of anywhere. Sanskar is an establishment of a practice, of a relationship, of values that you would pass on to your children in their behavior, conduct, and living. That's important. Children learn from watching the parents. Children don't learn by hearing a book. It's a saying, famous saying, that I can tell my child to do what he must do, at the same time I'm violating that very principle. It will have no effect. So Jayji, ये बताइए आप कि how does an Indian parent establish a sanskar to his children in this America, where the value systems, American value systems, are very different from our value systems. But living is the same pattern.
Sure.
Rich people live the same way in India the way they live here. Poverty has no religion written on it. The question is, how do we establish sanskar, which is a very important value on our Hindu way of life?
Good question, Vibhuti ji. I think it's in fact one of the probably most important question that we, you know, that we should be addressing ourselves to. First of all, sanskar, you know, it cannot be really defined in simple words. The other thing is, sanskar is not a list of do's and don'ts. You know, it's you can't teach it in a school, do these 10 things and then you'll be really a good boy or girl. It's the value system that our children imbibe from us, from the way we live, the way we talk, the way we behave. So while we are living in a dual culture society, our children obviously have a lot of tension as a result of that. I think the only way for us to continue, have the continuation of our sanskar, our heritage in across generations, is by us exhibiting the behavior that we want our children to exhibit, in their life. So, for instance, if you're going to be using bad words in your daily conversation, you cannot expect your child to be not using bad words. For instance, if you want to, if you're abusing someone, they will learn that from you. If you're fighting, on small things, they will learn that from you. If on the other hand you get up in the morning and you do your morning things, and then you do prayer in front of your small mandir in the house, they will learn that from you as well. On occasion you go to social gatherings where they are interacting with children of other parents, but they're also interacting with their parents, and they're calling them auntie, they're calling them uncle, they're calling this and that, as opposed to calling them by name. That you're teaching them by simple, your own behavior and your own example. That is the only way I can see, sanskar being passed on to the next generation. And I tell you, we've raised 3 children, and they're now into their 30s and 40s. They've gone through their teenage years, questioning everything. But when I look at them, I could not be any prouder. I think they are a great example of what value system I would want to see in our next generation.
There is one, that's a perfect thing, that we are reflected in our children, and if our children are doing well, that means we did something right. Yeah. Now, coming to one very important issue, and that is, how does Hinduism, Sanatan practices, which are truly relevant in the current context of the world. I have told my Muslim and Christian friends that if you just embrace one principle of Hinduism, there will be instant world peace. And that is, you may consider Jesus is the only way. You may consider Allah is supreme. Good for you. I have no objection to your belief, so long as it gets the best out of you as a human being. Similarly, right? So the idea here is that why do other religions convert? I wanted to go back. And in the Hinduism, you pray to whoever you want, whatever you want. There are many incarnations of God, and they are not God, but they're incarnations of God. Mm-hmm. We give them God-like stature, sure, just as Christianity has saints and whatever. So the question here is that how does one establish that particular faith? That I told them that we go to, all the gods live in the same temple. Now, I go to temple, I pray to Lord Ganesh, mm-hmm, doesn't mean, and I walk out of the temple, doesn't mean Venkateshwara or Shiva comes to kill me. Sure. The question is, how do we create a world where not tolerance, but acceptance and respect, which is the key word of Hindu faith, which I earlier talked to you, that we accept whoever prays to whatever, whether you pray or not, doesn't matter, so long as whatever you do gets the best out of you. People have been surprised about that. They tell me, why don't you tell us about it? So the question here is, what I'm coming to you with is, how do we carry these narratives to the West, other belief systems? And that leads to the conversion element. Yeah. India is beset with, in the name of freedom of religion, people are converting. Is that freedom of religion? You are forcing somebody to convert to something. You are taking away that freedom. How do you think, as an institution,
Yeah.
You are an institution. How do we educate and contest these kind of conversations?
So I think the only way you can do is by projecting positive narrative about your own belief system. We don't believe in criticizing
Correct.
Other faiths. They can believe in whatever they want to believe in. That is, part of my Hindu value system teaches me not to criticize. The issue is, it's fine for anyone to believe in what they want to believe in, as long as they respect my right to believe in what I choose to believe in. Now, yes, we have a very diverse set of belief system, embodied within the Hindu Dharma. At the end of the day, I think there is obviously some confusion around, praying to this God, praying to that God, and so on and so forth. That diversity gets sometimes into confusion about do we believe in multiple gods or do we believe in one God? I think we have a lot of educational work to do in that area to actually show that it all is a very unified belief system. And it becomes even more important in this society where we cannot tell children to shut up and not ask questions.
Sure.
I think we need a lot more work to do to actually come up with rational answers to these basic questions. Why do we pray to Hanuman? Why do we pray to Ganesha? Why do we pray to this? Why do we pray to that? Those things I think we need to develop. I think we not only just...
You will be glad to know that I developed the answer for that, because an American asked me once, and I'll share that with the audience and with you as well.
Yeah.
After a consulting work was over, the president of the company asked me, Vibhuti, can I ask you a tough question about your faith?
Yeah.
Why do you worship so many gods? And I said, why do you do idol worship? And I said, there has to be a response, not a reaction. First of all, that's very important.
Yeah.
So I responded to him by saying that if you believe that God created this entire universe, that means He created everything in it.
Quite right.
And everything in it, which means rats, rodents, and snakes, and everything. And He also gave life-sustaining forces. And I used the example of 3. And I said, do you think sun is a life-sustaining force? He said, yes. I said, without sun's energy, we will be in ice age. So if I get up in the morning and I say, thank you,
and pray to
thank you God
yes.
for giving us sun, which is a form, right?
Yes.
Sun has a form,
Right.
Similarly, air, which is invisible, totally invisible. Without air, nothing exists.
Quite right.
So if I pray to non-form, is there anything wrong in it? Air is omnipresent, omniscient, everything.
Yeah.
And thirdly, I gave the example of water. That water assumes the shape of whatever it goes into. So God manifests Himself in form, non-form, or a form that is anything.
Yeah.
That's what the beauty of our faith is. If we do not educate people, people will lose the thing. And that's important here. That's why I liked your meaning of your conference, which was about threads.
Yeah.
Threads is about connecting, about linking, about knitting and weave a story that connects with one on the other. So tell me more about, and share more with the audiences about, how did the thread thing originate, and what was the first experience of a remarkably successful event? I was there, so I can proudly say, I'm not telling you a hearsay. It was a good event, and you were the convener of that. So congratulations for hosting that conference.
Thank you. So I talked a little bit about the genesis of threads, how it came about, and it took us a year to put it together. Getting really a galaxy of
share the thought of threads.
Yeah.
Avoid going into the history of it.
Yeah.
Tell me how thread worked in this scenario.
So thread worked in number of ways. First of all, bringing that many high-profile speakers and panelists together under one roof on one platform.
Majority of them Indians.
Majority of them Indians, but also
non-Indians.
Non-Indians, those who find something interesting and useful in the Hindu Dharmic system. So we had, for example, the chairperson for the Holistic Living panel, Hilary Garvaltis.
I was there.
You were there.
Yeah.
From Maharishi University of Management, we had Dr. Stewart's, I'm sorry, his last name just escapes me. But, so there were a wide variety of people. So bringing them together and talking about their personal experiences in this society, daylighting their contributions, is in itself, and doing that on one platform and connecting them with their, Hindu heritage, I think is one of the very significant achievement. Now what we're trying to do is put it all together into a narrative. It could be in the form of a book, it could be in the form of conversations like this, so that we can communicate the output from that event to the community at large, our own community, Hindu community, Indian community, but also the society that we live in. So I think the short-term effect was positive. Longer-term effect, we believe is positive, but of course, it takes time to,
So when are you going to have the next thread? Is it related with your Meadowland event, which is happening in this September? Tell us something about it. We have 2 minutes, okay. So we have 1 minute too.
Yeah, sure. So the Threads is meant to be a biannual event. So every 2 years, we will hold Threads conference. Mm-hmm. Similar format, maybe some minor differences going forward, some tweaking. But so expect another Threads in 2 years from now, so to speak. Now, the Meadowland event is actually a very special event. It's a once-in-a-lifetime event, actually, in the life of this organization and the Hindu community at large. And that is, Vishwa Hindu Parishad of America was formed and registered in 1970, I believe March of 1970. So we are completing our 50 years. So this is a celebration of those 50 years. 50 years of continuously operating in the society and serving the Hindu community of America in a variety of ways is the achievement of this organization, and we didn't even get a chance to talk about all the wonderful achievements and offsprings that we have generated. But needless to say, it's a very impactful experience.
I'm very glad about that. Yeah. That you're hosting your 50th year of VHPA, and as always the saying goes, every good conversation has to come to an end because time is limited. Now, this concept, this topic is very large. No conversation can be completed in all its manifestations in one 45-minute or 1 hour show. So we will have many more discussions on this to take the message forward. Institution building is one, which is very critical for our faith to have. Like every other faith has built very strong, powerful institutions. Somehow along the line, I feel we Hindus have not created the institutions that can carry the message forward. It's very important. So to that end, we will have many more conversations. Jai Bansalji, thank you very much for coming today. Really pleasure to have you, and I'm glad you were able to share your thoughts. Thank you very much for watching today, and stay tuned for next week. Have a great weekend.